Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Web3 Magic podcast. Today, I'm here with Paddy, and he is from the project called Minima. Minima Network, Minima Global.
Hi
Welcome,
there.
Paddy.
Thanks for having me on the show. So I'm a techie. I'm an old school techie, been coding my whole life. And I fell down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Frankly, the point of Bitcoin is freedom. And freedom is the most powerful concept in the world. Then there came a point where it became obvious that there were those who ran the network and there were those who, used the network. I suddenly realized that I wasn't running the network anymore. I was just using the network. And that was really the birth of Minima. And that was where the concepts for Minima, which is the blockchain that I work on, first arose. It was probably about 20 before I actually started sitting down at a computer and writing code, where I could actually verbalize and describe correctly what it was that we were trying to do, with Minima. So originally it was just yours truly sitting in a coffee shop with a laptop, Pixel book, lovely, best keyboard, just writing the white paper and trying to decide what it is that we're trying to do. So let's start with the freedom of speech. Think of it like that way. Then you must have a censorship resistant network. Freedom of speech requires censorship resistance. Okay, this is the first thing that you sort of realize. It's like, well, look, if you can stop me from saying something, or if you can stop me from thinking something, then I'm not really free. Yeah. So freedom requires censorship resistance. And now the thing is that censorship resistance requires decentralization. If it were possible to have censorship resistance in a centralized system, we'd have done it by now. Bitcoin wouldn't have done anything special. So then you go, okay, so I need freedom. I want freedom. So I need censorship resistance. And if I want censorship resistance, then it has to be decentralized because centralized systems are so easy to attack. If you want to have a system that operates in a decentralized environment, you need a blockchain. That's what blockchain does. What blockchain allows us to do, me and somebody else can agree in a decentralized way exactly the order of events. And before Satoshi, we couldn't do that. If you're going to use a blockchain, it must be decentralized. And if you're not going to be decentralized, there is no point using a blockchain. Blockchains themselves are a complete nightmare. Yeah, they're terrible, terrible databases. And so this is where Minima comes in. So what I realized I wanted from Minima, the only thing that matters for Minima is that it is completely decentralized. Once you've got your decentralized system working, once you've got your blockchain and it's decentralized, then we can worry about the scripting language, the block size, how cool the transactions are. I can do what I can do on it. But that is secondary, importantly. If any of the things you're going to add to this system are going to impact the decentralization, you're not allowed to have them. You look at all the other chains out there, and Minima is different to every single other blockchain out there, which I'm quite happy about. And what I mean by that is that every other blockchain out there has this thing where you have those who use the network and you have those who run the network. And so the users rely on someone else. And in a truly decentralized system, you should never need anybody else. If you want to do this with your friend, you don't need me. We cannot have people in charge of the chain. However cool Bitcoin mining is and Solana and Ether, it's still a business, even though it uses cool technical digital stuff. So what do we have to do? So you say to yourself, okay, so I need to come up with a system that every user can run in the same way, exactly the same. There's no difference between users. I'm not a user and everybody's the same. And so the first thing you think about is, well, look, what can I run this on? And you say, well, look, I can't run it on laptops because half the planet doesn't have a laptop, and I certainly can't run it on servers. And so what's the only device that I can reasonably expect people to have access to? And you say, well, they've got a mobile phone. Okay, so I've got to run this in full. Yeah, not a light client, not a weird thing, not just like a wallet. The whole thing needs to run on a mobile phone. And you're like, oh, okay, fine. And then you think to yourself, okay, well, these are my requirements. What else do I need? Well, I need some way of storing this enormous amount of data on your phone. Great. We have a huge advantage here because I have the luxury of looking back through all the past blockchain battles and cherry picking all the stuff that has been made. With the benefit of hindsight, there have been beautiful inventions that have been made in this field that allow you to do things like, instead of having a database that stores all the data, I can have a database where you store the data that is relevant to you and I store just the data that is relevant to me, and we can still agree on what is the complete amount of data. This is called a proof database, which was actually created after Bitcoin. Yeah. Another Another thing you have to think about is developers, people like me, people who will never stop playing if you let me play. So you have to get rid of me. How do you get rid of me? You have to have the protocol has to be finished. It can't be a protocol which is like, and then we're doing this epoch, and then there's another thing that we're doing, and then we're going to be adding this. No, that can't happen. So the protocol had to be finished completely and utterly. Now let's do that. But how are we going to get rid of this business element? How are we going to get rid of the miners? How are we going to make it so that every user is the same? And actually, it's actually quite easy. And what you do is you flip it, where all of us work on the same team. And so that's what Minima does. And what Minima does is it says, look, instead of some of us grinding away, Minima is a proof of work chain. Instead of one of us grinding away or using our funds or whatever to build the chain, we don't do that. We say that everybody has to do a little bit of work. And then we get all of that work and we put it together, and that's what we use to secure the chain. And importantly, you're not rewarded financially for that work. That work is something you do to be allowed on the network. So the utility of the network is the reward you get for the work you do. So it allows you to have access. And when I say work, I mean a very small amount. Sure. In the Minima paradigm, you have 10 million, really small, tiny people who each do a little bit of work. So everybody on the Minima network works together in a cooperative game where what is good for you is good for me. This is called a win-win scenario. And you take all these pieces, you stick them in, you start coding. At the end of it, you do it. We've now got a blockchain that runs on your phone that doesn't use up terabytes of data because everybody only stores what matters to them, where we have no incentive, no financial incentive to work more than somebody else. I do the minimum amount of work that I'm required to do to access the network. And we now have a completely decentralized blockchain where everybody's mucking about with everybody. The larger Minima gets, the more decentralized it becomes. Now that sounds like a decentralized system to me. Yeah, that's what I want from my system. And that's what we're working on here at Minima.
It sounds a little bit like a fairy tale.
Yeah, and it runs on everything. You want to put it on a chip. You want to put it on your toaster. The goal eventually is for your toaster to pay for the electricity it uses in real time when it, makes your toast. And it's got a little chip in it, and it does Minima, and it pays for transactions over Lightning. So we have a fixed cap. Yeah, we have the fixed cap. There's 1 billion Minima coins. You can have any amount. We picked 1 billion because people want to own more than one coin. But our security is not dependent on fees. The security of Minima is only dependent on the number of users. And so what is the sacrifice that Minima has had to make to achieve what it has? Minima only works at scale. So Minima will only be a functional secure chain if a lot of people use it. We need a lot of users because our security is based on all the little bits of work that all of our users do. What Minima wants is 1%. 1% of the world, as in 1% of your processing power, 1% of your hard drive, I want 1% of your RAM, 1% of your battery. But if you gave us 1%, we could have the network forever, undefeatable.
I know that you guys had I think you called it Decentra Day or something, when you guys turned off your own servers.
So this is another thing.
Do you want to talk about it?
So on Decentra Day, we turned off all of our infra. We don't run any of the network at all. It is just the users running the network. So importantly, if something were to happen, if we were to disappear tomorrow, aliens take us away, the whole of the Minima, Minima Global disappears tomorrow, the network is unaffected. That's so cool. Yeah. Right. When you think of email, when you think of your email protocol, email was finished, the protocol, 40 years ago. They haven't touched email. POP3, IMAP, it's done. They're still spending $1 million a year writing Outlook. So the client that interfaces with the protocol, that you can constantly upgrade and make cooler. And now the wallet does this, and I've got a little picture of you and blah, blah, blah. But the protocol itself is finished. It doesn't change. That's how Minima is now. We have a protocol. It's finished. We're not used in that. And we're writing the client. We're writing the best client. And we update that and we upgrade that. And, hopefully that'll go on for as long as possible. But should we disappear tomorrow, the network is unaffected. And that makes me happy. Yeah. That sounds decentralized to me. Yeah. We're in discussions with telcos, telecommunications, and vehicle things, whatever. And they like Minima because, they don't have to spend any money on the infrastructure because the phone network is the infrastructure.
Okay, look, I've already taken a pretty big chunk of your time, but I definitely have one more question. So obviously, what's up for Minima in 2020? What should people look out for?
Get our message out there. If you ask one person in a million whether they know about Minima, one person in a million knows about Minima. We've got a good network, the software works, and you can then write applications as websites. We call them mini dApps. dApps. Because on Minima, your mini dApp talks to your server because everybody runs everything. Everybody processes every transaction. Everybody's involved in the construction of the chain. And so a mini dApp runs through you. You're the only thing. And so when two people are using a mini dApp, that's it. Web applications that interface with your node. Beautiful. Love it.
Right. That sounds super cool. So, I got all I hoped for today because, it was not only exciting conversation, but a lot of information, which I believe will put a lot of things people hear daily on Twitter Spaces into a different perspective. And hopefully will make some of them think about, what decentralization really means or what do they want.
It's Minima. Yeah. If you want to go to the website, minima.com.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pete. It's a real pleasure. Thanks so much.